Statistics and probability. Our first section is going to be on designing a survey. But to start, we're going to look at how statistics and probability work together. Now, it's important to understand that they are two different directions in terms of how to find out information. In probability, we're kind of very familiar with that, where we have a bucket that has things in it. Typically, it's marbles or names and so on. And we know how many of each things are in the bucket so that we know the probability of putting our hand in and grabbing out certain things. Knowledge is that we know everything in the bucket. Statistics works the other way. We don't know what's in the bucket. So to find out what's in the bucket, we will reach in, take out what we call a sample, and from that sample, it gives us a picture as to what could be in the bucket. And we create our probabilities from that. So more of an experimental probability compared to a theoretical probability. So that's kind of the big picture of it. Now, some key terms come into play for our first section. Now, we're going to talk about designing a survey. So we have to know a couple key pieces. One is, what kinds of information, what kinds of methods do we have to gather information? So when you take information in, you can take it by having a survey. In other words, the data are from responses given by a sample of a population. And again, that verbiage looks like this. If you say that the population is everyone, so if we could put everyone, again, in a bucket per se, we will reach in and pull something out. And when we take something out, a little piece of that, that's called a sample, just like that picture that we just looked at. Taking a piece of information out, and from that sample, we'll decide what we think the big picture looks like. So when we give a survey, we're getting a sample of the population. Now that's something very typical, and you're very familiar with that. Another one is an observational survey, or excuse me, an observational study. And that's where you observe the people reacting to things. You're not giving them anything, you're just watching. You're not asking them to fill out anything, you're just watching to see how they react to something. Very common with respect to products and how they react to something that they're offered, either food or technology or something like that. An experiment, however, is when you change something. So you're going to cause something to be different to them, and you're going to watch what they do. But because you're interacting with them, then that's going to cause it to be an experiment over just observation. Now, in these questions, you're also going to be asked to say the method in which you got information, the survey, for example, and who you asked. It's going to come down to labels like a simple random sample, stratified random sample, or a systematic random sample. And there are slight differences in the two. The most common is a simple random sample, where everyone has a chance of being picked so that they can be asked a question or be a part of a study. If you're going to be more organized than that, it's very typical to say a systematic process would be to say that to be random, you're not going to pull from a hat, for example. You're going to say, I'm going to make a rule, and from that rule, I will find out who I'm going to ask. So you have, typically, you'd say something like, I'm going to pick only the people with red shirts. You don't know who they are, so it's random, but it gives you a rule. Or you're going to talk to the person closest to the door in each classroom. That's, again, random. You don't know who they are. Everyone has a chance of being picked. But that's creating a system, in other words, a rule. A stratified random is something a little bit more detailed that says, you know what, you're going to ask a question, but you want to make sure that everyone has a chance of answering it, like certain groups. Let's say it's a question that maybe females answer it differently than males, so you want to make sure that you're going to ask an even number of both. So you're going to split your population into two groups, for example, male, female, and then pull people randomly from each group. So you guarantee that you'll have the same number of female answers as you will male answers. Same goes for grade levels and so on. So we'll talk about that as well. And these terms are going to come up in our Section 1 homework.